Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kind for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you as usual. Welcome aboard, Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. AVQ from Brooklyn, New York. You're in late, senor. You're in late. Joe from Los Angeles, California. Eric from Kingwood, Atascocita. Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. Kathy Barbaro, how you doing today? I missed the first few dozen on Substack, as I mention all the time. Is TikTok live China Trojan horse? Do they get paid for America dysfunction of given on this app? Look, TikTok is what it is, right? My only concern with TikTok is what actually gets censored. I've been watching, and so far, not a whole lot of censorship that I expect to be there. I think Joanne Reed just came out and said she tried posting some stuff about Trump and somehow it didn't get posted. I'll do my own test on that to see if anything here gets held back. Harry Denson from Missouri City, Texas, welcome aboard. So yeah, how's it going, guys? I trust all is well. While we gather more people around, it seems like Brother Rudnin has some videos. Let's go ahead and see what we're talking about here. You said 4, but I see 5. What are you talking about? 4 shorts and 1 long. Which is a short? Which is a long one? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Anyhow, folks, thank you for being here. What are we going to cover today? I'm going to play 2 things actually. Well, I didn't cue them up. I'm going to play what I did with let's go here. What I did with 2 shows that I was on, both the Attitude with Arneson as well as Jenna. I was on Jenna's show this morning, and I want to play that as well. So let me go ahead and cue these 2 guys up as we speak, and then we'll get with the business. We'll get. Oh, I need to change the name on that one. That is Jenna. There we go. All right. Flanagan. All right, folks, we're going to get started right now. How's everybody doing? I trust all is fine. Jen King, Joan, thank you for being here. Paul Henry Carvalho, is that how you say that? Melaninart, thank you for being here. Let's see what else have we got here. The New York Times investigated 346 people who donated at least $250,000 to Trump since he got elected and found that more than half of them, 197, have received pardons, jobs, government contracts, special treatment, or favors. It's a corrupt government, but something that we knew, a very, very corrupt government. It's going, look, putting all of this back together is not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy putting this all back together because this guy has so destroyed our government, faith in our government, it's going to be a mess trying to put this back together, but it's something that we're going to have to do. All right, let's go ahead and try I'm going to try with the first one from Mr. Radnin, and hopefully that's not the long one. Well, let me see first of all. That one looks like it may not be. All right, so you want to cover the Epstein files. I'm not really keen on the Epstein files, but I'll play that one for you, Mr. Rudnin. And the reason I'm not keen on it, I'd rather somebody else cover that. There's so much other stuff that materially affects people's lives. But let's go ahead and not don't want to disparage what has happened to those ladies. First of all, let me make that very clear. Uh, so I need to go ahead but let me go ahead and play it. I don't know what it says, Rudden. I hope you're not, you got it right, my brother. Let's go ahead and play that. All right. What's going on here? Hold on. Apparently, that should be playing just fine. Let's try it again.
Law provisions protecting attorney-client privilege. Todd Blanche is asserting that some of the redactions in the Epstein files that we've seen before are based on common law provisions protecting attorney-client privilege and the like. Let's be clear about something. Common law is real law, according to our Constitution, according to the American justice system, according to the rule of law. However, if something is not unconstitutional, then a statute can supersede common law and often does. Common law is the law that develops over time, basically by interpreting the gaps in law. There are some things that are, red leather laws that have been established by the common law. But common law is basically what Republicans sometimes cry about as judicial activism if you didn't understand how things work. Common law is law that is developed over time by the courts. And anything that is a common law, including various privileges and stuff, can be and was, in this case, overridden by a congressional act creating a statute that changes the law. There's nothing in that statute that gives them permission to make those privilege assertions. So the Department of Justice under Trump's leadership is hiding things. And we need to know exactly what they're hiding. And eventually the truth will come out. So
Yep, eventually the truth will come out. And here's the second one from Brednen. And then I'm going to go into the program. Here we go.
Listen, I don't approve of all of the tactics ICE is using, but what else are we supposed to do? Respecting human rights could be a good start. We've never had this many immigrants in the U.S. It's a takeover. We need to protect our culture. Okay, first of all, I've told you white is not a culture. And no. Immigrants make up roughly 14% of the population. That's the same share as it was 100 years ago during the age of mass migration. Whatever. You never want to accept the fact that they will not assimilate. They come to our country, they don't even speak our language. They stick to their own groups, they make their own neighborhoods. So immigrants today, and especially their kids, assimilate at the same rate as they always have. You move to a completely different culture, it takes more than a minute to adapt. And over time, a lot of the families move out of the immigrant neighborhoods, marry U.S.-born spouses, and their children become fully integrated into U.S. society. Okay, well, you can't ignore the fact that they are a huge drain on the public health system and they're taking jobs from Americans. Fox News does love to say that, but it's not true. Public health costs for immigrants are proportionally lower than for American-born citizens. So no, they're not overloading the public health system. And all those jobs you say undocumented immigrants are stealing, those are jobs U.S.-born workers are avoiding. Companies struggle to fill them. So those immigrants are holding entire industries together, not stealing jobs. This is ridiculous. You're defending people who aren't even here legally and are way more likely to commit crimes, violent crimes. Your chosen media loves to highlight those stories, but it doesn't make them more prevalent. Immigrants are less likely than those born in the U.S. to be arrested or incarcerated. True in the past, true today. Well, most of America disagrees with you. The American public has never been more supportive of immigration than they are today. You are in the minority. You just can't tell because you guys don't shut up long enough to listen. So, listen, I don't approve of...
Michael, if there is one that I so love, it is that one. That was excellent. And the way it was presented, excellent. Bookmark that one, guys. Bookmark that one and give it to your cousins. Anyway, Aline Funicillo, welcome up for Fushilo, welcome aboard. Leslie Nichols, Charlie. Margaret Ryan from Washington is here. Just facts do not work. You're absolutely right about that. But you know what's good about that? That enumerates a list of things that they're saying. It gives a starting point to go check it out. Lana Foley, welcome aboard. All right, folks. Let's Bruce Pollard. How you doing, Bruce? No, you got into Substack, I guess, too early for me to give you a shout out. But thank you for being here, my dear friend. Leave the Bearcat, leave Jamie Jameson out of it. I know what you're talking about, Mr. Bearcat. My slip from last week, right? All right. Let the new welcome aboard. Anyway, I was on the New York station this morning, and I want to go ahead and play what we did on that this morning, and then we'll take it on the other side. Here we go.
Already, I've secured a record-breaking $18 trillion of investment into the United States, which means jobs, wage increases, growth, factory openings, and far greater national security. Much of this success has been accomplished by tariffs. My favorite word, tariffs, which for many decades have been used successfully by other countries against us, but not anymore. Companies know that if they build in America, there are no tariffs. And that's why they're coming home to the USA in record numbers. They're building factories and plants at levels we haven't seen, AI, automobiles. We're doing what nobody thought was even possible, not even remotely possible. There has never, frankly, been anything like it. 1 year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail. Totally failed. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. And that's said by every single leader that I've spoken to over the last 5 months. Next year, you will also see the results of the largest tax cuts in American history that were really accomplished through our great, big, beautiful bill, perhaps the most sweeping legislation ever passed in Congress. We wrapped 12 different bills up into one beautiful bill. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year. And next spring is projected to be the largest tax refund season of all time. Because of tariffs, along with the just passed one big beautiful bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776. Think of that. And the checks are already on the way.
All right, that was 2.5 minutes of President Trump's primetime address from the diplomatic room of the White House on Wednesday. Now, the rapid-fire 18-minute speech was a departure from the president's typical relaxed delivery. Though the speech was praised in public by most mainstream Republicans, many griped off the record about its effectiveness, with one member of Trump's first administration telling Politico, quote, "The execution was abysmal." So here to discuss the major political developments of the week, including the latest on healthcare and the deepening conflict in Venezuela, is our regular panel. We are joined by Egberto Willies, host of KPFT's Politics Done Right, political reporter and former intelligence officer in the Army, the war in Afghanistan, Laura Jadid, and Washington, D.C. correspondent Dave Leventhal. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you for having
to be with you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So, Alberto, I want to start with you. I mean, first off, I feel like the question many Americans are probably wondering is what exactly it is that makes a country, quote unquote, hot. But what was, I guess, your take on the goals from Wednesday's primetime address?
I have no idea why he did it. I mean, it makes no sense for him to do it because his people that would believe that speech are already with him. And what he has done with that speech is codified in other people's mind that he is, in fact, a bona fide liar. It's like he's looking at them and saying, your eyes aren't seeing what they're really seeing. Everybody's seeing these things. And if you're not a Trump sycophant, you already know that he's lying, and he's just putting that in concrete. Now, when he talks about the hottest country, which is your question, Jenna, what does the hottest country mean? It's in his imagination. the rest of the world, anybody who reads a newspaper from any of the Central American countries or the European countries realize that the rest of the world is moving away from America. You're not the hottest country when countries are trying to get to BRICS as fast as possible. You're not the hottest country when other countries around the world are starting to make plans to live without you. The European Union is starting to realize that America is no longer their friends. The first time they elected Donald Trump, okay, you can make a mistake. The second time you elect Donald Trump, there is a systemic problem within our culture. And the rest of the world has realized that. And while they cannot move along immediately, there's still the ACH and all these other financial instruments that they need from us. Mm-hmm. They are starting to slowly move away from us. And so I don't know what the hottest means, Jenna. I really don't.
Well, Alberto, this speech was reportedly an effort from the White House to help the president reverse some of his extremely low approval ratings. So a lot of what Dave was just alluding to. And of course, we do have the midterms coming up in less than a year. If this was not an effective method, do you have any idea as to what can be done to reverse the downward trend?
Yeah, first, what Laura said about him reading from the teleprompter is something that I should have mentioned. It is scary that, to your question, it is scary that everything that he said on that speech, he read it off of the teleprompter before we could use as an excuse, well, that's coming out of Trump's mind. But remember, he read the teleprompter, which means he had an entire organization behind a speech that misleads, a speech that lied. If the entire administration is in such a point that they don't understand that cannot help them, as you're asking about in the midterms, mm-hmm. One has to be concerned because it says that the entire administration is, in fact, delusional. Because there is no way they can believe that after a speech like that, which his chief of staff actually, I understood, pushed him towards, will actually make things better. Now, you remember that 1776 check that he receives? Why is he giving it just to the military? Maybe it's to curry favor for something later on in case. Who knows?
We know that the Republican pushback has been that the Democrats just want to give, they want to pay your tax dollars to the insurance companies. Does that seem to be, from what you can tell, do you think that's a good strategy? And do we know if that's hitting? Well, we're almost out of time. So, Alberto, about 30 seconds.
Let me tell you, I think this gives a great opportunity with the election, the midterms coming up and primaries coming up. This is the time where progressives need to take action and win in primaries. We can finally have a reason to show why Medicare for all is the absolute and entirely only solution. This gives the perfect opportunity. The pain of the people is where changes happen. As they feel that pain, we can get the change.
All right. Well, we're going to have to leave it there, but we will continue to follow this developing story. Many thanks to our panel, political reporter Laura Jadid, Egberto Willies, host of KPFT's Politics Done Right, and Washington, D.C. correspondent Dave Leventhal.
Hey, I think we got a good one, a great one from, who is this from, this link from? I mean, I really want to play this one. Paul Fleming. If this is what I think it is, Paul, this is going to, I'm going to kind of love it. Let's go ahead and play that one. Let me put it on the screen first of all, and then we'll take it from there. I want to make sure and get this one right. Let's go ahead and do that now.
They have a plan, but they've never had a plan. Let me just go through a list of things here. In February of 2016, then presidential candidate Donald Trump said, we're going to replace Obamacare with something so much better. Nothing followed. On February 27th of 2017, the president said, we have a really terrific, I believe, health care plan coming out. Never did. May 10th, 2018, Donald Trump said, but wait till you see the plans that we have coming out literally over the next 4 weeks. We have a great health care plan coming out. Nothing happened. At a press gaggle near Air Force One in May of 2019, he said, we're coming up with a great health care plan. We're going to have a fantastic health care plan that's coming out in the next 4 weeks. Nothing ever materialized. June 16th, 2019, President said, we're going to produce a phenomenal health care plan, and we already have the concept of a plan, and it will be so much better health care. Yeah, well, we'll be announcing it in about 2 months, maybe less. Nothing happened. Fox News interview, the president said, we're signing in a health care plan within 2 weeks, a full and complete health care plan. Nothing happened. July 2020, the president said, well, we're going to be doing a health care plan. We're going to be doing a very inclusive health care plan. I'll be signing it sometime very soon. It might be Sunday, but very, very soon. Nothing happened. August 3rd, 2020, the president said we're going to be introducing a tremendous health care plan sometime hopefully prior to the end of the month. It's just about completed. Nothing. September 15th, 2020, the president says you're going to have a new health care. We have a whole bunch of alternatives to Obamacare that are 50% less expensive and are actually better. Nothing. Never happened. September 10th, 2024, ABC News presidential debate. He says, I have concepts of a plan. You'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future. Nothing happened. December 8th, 2024, he said, we have concepts of a plan that will be much better. You'll see it very soon. Produce nothing. In May of 2025, at a White House event, he says, so we're going to be maybe coming up with something. I think this gives the Republicans a chance to actually do a health care that's much better than Obamacare. Nothing. People are sick and tired of the empty rhetoric. They're sick and tired of you saying you have a plan and you never produce one. All you want to do is undermine health care for hardworking average Americans. Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Rivas.
Now that he nailed that to the rim. Now he nailed that to the rim. For those of you that are listening that are supporters of Donald Trump, those are his words. Those are the words of your Führer. How do you not look at him for what he really is? What is in your psyche that allows you to do that? Listen, you may not like the Democratic plan, but at least the Democrats came up with something, absolutely something. All right, Jacqueline Campisi, la profesora from Katy, welcome aboard. Lana Foley says, Egberto, I've heard the money he is using for those checks are from the funds that were set aside for the housing first for the military families. In other words, he's just moving the money into their pockets instead of creating housing, is what you're saying. I don't know that for a fact, but I'll take your research on that. Lynette says, wasn't it funding that got cut to help them relocate and make housing costs difference? And they canceled it and using that money now for that. It is a shame what this guy does. My antagonist, do you lie? Old news. Everything is old news. Denmark is old news. I'm going to talk about Denmark. You may complain about that being old news too. I don't know. But again, something new happens or some other analysis happens as well. I think it's important for us to be, what is the word that I like to use? Understand that a lot of things stay the same, right? It's in the context that actually changes, right? Anyhow, before we go on to Denmark, let's see. Well, Egberto, as the saying goes, those voters who voted for convict Trump a third time, MAGA and non-MAGA voters fool me once. I know I made a mistake. Fool me again and again. Shame on me. I hope these voters who voted for convict Trump have learned their lessons. I think, look, while many won't say that they did, I think, look, the people who voted for Trump generally voted for him for two reasons. One, because he's a shyster that they know they could manipulate to get tax cuts, tax breaks, regulation cuts, all of those. Those are the smart people who voted for him, right? They voted for him because they could see a material difference that they will make. Now, the others who voted for him, I am sorry. It had nothing to do with thinking that things were going to get better for you. Because the reality is, nothing that he has ever done has been economically advantageous for the middle class, neither in his first term nor the beginning of his second term. Uh, every single thing that he did for the middle class was a facade, because as as people got tax cuts, those tax cuts were eaten by not only higher prices, those tax cuts were eaten by higher health care, those tax cuts were eaten by higher fees, those tax cuts were eaten by everything else. So in effect, even the tax cuts given to the middle class was really a transfer of wealth to the wealthy. How? Well, if your healthcare went up, that means insurance companies made more money. If your food prices went up, that means the agribusinesses income went up. And we actually have the numbers to show that. I don't expect the MAGA base and the Trump sycophants to believe in those numbers, right? They're not. But that's not who we're trying to reach. I am trying to get, let's say, Egberto confirmed Trump took money out of veterans housing funds to give that money they were already due to receive. ABC, same article. Trump appears to be using money that already allocated for housing allowances and reframing it as warrior dividends, describing it as a check for troops just in time for Christmas. You see, it's a fraud. The guy is a fraud. And those of you that are supporting him, that are in my chat defending him, that is he makes a fool out of you every single time. Eric says he voted for him for economics. Eric, I know you didn't vote for him for economics. You voted for him for prejudice. You may not want to accept it, but that is a fact. You voted for him because of who he was, and who he hated. All right. Continuing. Let that economic argument of why they voted for Trump. Anybody in the upper middle class, middle class, lower middle class, poor, if you voted for Donald Trump under that, you did it because you're prejudiced. You're either an evangelical that was controlled by your church, same difference, but you did it because you're prejudiced. All right, and to some extent racist. All right, let me and look, and I don't want to mince my words. I mean that. I think I can qualify that. I can corroborate that. I can point that out very easily. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about Greenland, because this is Margaret Ryan says Gilberto asked Mike Cizek to bring his factual references on 80% of immigrants are on welfare. Margaret, he cannot bring that references because look, that is such a okay, I'm going to go out of character right now. That is such a stupid statement, right? It reflects on the person who makes it. I don't like to speak that way, but I've got to on this one. Migrants are the core of many of our different economies in this country. And you know who's finding that out right now? The prices that you're paying for produce right now, it's probative. All right. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Greenland. I mean, this is crazy. And it's not only about Greenland, it's about Venezuela. I had a caller this morning, and he actually this is a good guy. This is a good guy. But and he's a very progressive guy as well. But let me tell you what I learned from that call this morning. What I learned from that call this morning is that Donald Trump has some very good, or I shouldn't say Trump, I should say the Trump organization has some good psychologists working for them that know the buttons that one can push on people, whether they are liberal, whether they're conservative, but that works, right? Because this very progressive guy calls into the program and he talks about, well, you know what's happening in Venezuela. He's not completely against what Trump is doing. off the coast of Venezuela because he's really convinced that, well, Russia has its hand in Venezuela and that Russia is going to be, somehow taking the oil from Venezuela. But the truth is, Russia doesn't need Venezuela's oil because Russia has a whole lot of its own oil to export. The one that would need Venezuela's oil is China and India, right? So he's talking about that, protecting, Russia controlling the oil. And my simple question was, okay, let's say that's the truth. Let's say that what the administration is saying is true, that Russia has influence in Venezuela, and Venezuela is allowing them to move their oil, etc. So what? Venezuela is an independent country and can make a deal with any other country. And then they start talking about how bad Russia is and how bad China is, etc. Well, he wasn't talking about China, he was talking about Russia. Look, I have no love for Russia at all, none whatsoever. But we ought to be careful when we talk about Russian influence all in the Western Hemisphere and what they do, etc. Russia is bad. Russia is killing a whole lot of Ukrainians. That is a truth. That's a fact. But ask yourself a few questions. In how many countries do you find Russian influence? In how many countries do you find Russian military bases? In how many countries do you find that Russia is out there messing with their that internal economy, that internal social structures? You don't see that. A few African countries, a few countries in Eurasia, etc. But when you speak about us, America, we have between 700 and 800 bases scattered around the world in country after country after country after country. And when a country step out of the line that we want them to step out of, we are always ready to bomb them. And we do. Grenada, El Salvador, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Panama, Honduras, Colombia, country after country after country, we have intervened in. Please give me the name of any other power that has gone into another independent country and bombed it to get its will. Please name me another country. We ought to be honest about that. All right, think about that. We are all over the place. We bomb all over the place. Now let's think about something else. We want to look at Russia as being such a bad guy, and they are. They are, no doubt about it. They are murdering Ukrainians with the bombs that they're indiscriminately sending with drones into Ukraine, Lviv, Kiev, and these other towns. Yes, they're doing that. But you know what they're not doing? They are not carpet bombing these places, right? So if we call what they're doing, and I think what they're doing is evil, if we call what they're doing evil, right? Then what do we call what Israel is doing with our bombs in Gaza, where they're flattening the entire country? How comes we can't grasp calling that evil and genocidal when it's so easy for us to call what Russia is doing, which is occurring on a much smaller scale than Gaza, evil? I want you guys to think about that. I want you guys to think about how we are hoodwinked by our own media. When we don't look at things logically, when we don't look at things from a point of view of being clear eyed, it is so easy for us to build a fallacy around who we are and what we are not to do. I mean, it is so easy. So I want you to be cognizant about that. Now, look, now we want to tell Venezuela what to do with its oil. We want to take Venezuela's oil. Okay? Now Greenland, we know, has a lot of rare earths and other minerals. Suddenly, we have an interest in Greenland, and we don't want to negotiate with Denmark, and which Greenland is a protectorate of Denmark. We don't want to negotiate with them about, well, if we want to get some of their rare earths and develop it, we need to sign treaties with whoever is controlling Denmark, you know. But no, no, we decide we want to take Denmark. It's almost like Russia finding a new form of bananas that only grow in Puerto Rico and says, well, Puerto Rico is not really an American state. It's really a commonwealth, kind of a pseudo state, kind of pseudo relationship. Let's talk to the Puerto Ricans and see if the Puerto Ricans want to leave their alliance with the United States and become Russians or becomes Danish. Suppose Denmark did that, right? Denmark sends a lot of its warships over to Puerto Rico and say, "Hey, Puerto Rico, what we'd like to do is establish a relationship. And do you guys want to be a part of Denmark? Do you want to be a part of Denmark?" This is some 1945 invade, I mean 1930 something invasion crap, man. And we don't see it because, as it turns out, we are hoodwinked in our minds, and our mainstream media don't educate us as they should. They should be the third estate. They should be calling out Donald Trump on Venezuela. They should be calling out Donald Trump on Greenland. They should be calling out Donald Trump on what he did in Panama. They should be calling out Donald Trump on, not Donald Trump, Donald Trump and the United States government on all these issues. But do they? Of course not. Because again, the mainstream media is controlled by our plutocracy who decides what's going to be done. All right. So you cannot annex another other countries. Greenland, Denmark, furious at Trump special envoy. I want to point this out. It says the leader of Denmark and Greenland have rejected President Donald Trump's plans to take control of the latter country very clearly before, said Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen and Greenlandic Premier Jens Frederik Nielsen on Monday. But they were forced to make their resolve even more explicit after the U.S. leader appointed a new special envoy to the autonomous Arctic island territory. National borders and the sovereignty of states are rooted in international law, said Fredrickson and Nielsen in joint statement Monday. You cannot annex other countries. Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders, and the U.S. should not take over Greenland. We expect respect for our common territorial integrity. I mean, come on. The two leaders spoke out after Trump announced his appointment of Republican Louisiana Governor Alondre as envoy to Greenland, with both men referencing plans to take control of the country of 57,000 people, which is a part of the Danish kingdom. Jeff understands how essential Greenland is to our national security and will strongly advance our country's interest for safety, security, and survival of our allies and indeed the world, said President Sunday evening. Wait a minute. Shouldn't Denmark be saying that? We want to protect our territorial. Shouldn't Denmark be the one saying that? Landry replied, it's an honor to serve you in this volunteer position to make Greenland a part of the U.S. I am reading this stuff and I'm like, this is some imperialistic BS. This is how these guys used to talk back in the 20s and the 30s. And we're still hearing it again now from a Donald Trump. I think the Trump administration had lost all the moral standing to stand up to Putin. All Putin has to say is, hey, you're trying to hold on to Greenland? Okay, brother, no problem. And what about Venezuela? Take Venezuela. It'll be good to keep their oil off the market anyway. The price of oil would go up if we can keep Venezuela oil off the market. So yeah, blow up a few ships. What? Let's back up a second. Trump wants to have it both ways, right? He kind of likes that the price of oil is down because it kind of makes inflation less worse here in America. But he also wants the price of oil up because it helps Putin. And Putin likely, and I don't have the facts about this, but anybody with the kind of loyalty that Donald Trump has shown to Putin likely has something on Donald Trump. Putin likely has something on Donald Trump. Okay? So, my hunch is he does want the price of oil to go up. He probably wants the price of oil to go up because that means more profit for Putin. More profit for Putin. We can get more deals between Trump and Putin. All right. While joining Fredrickson forcefully rejected any plans for an annexation of Greenland, Nielsen also dismissed Landry's new role in another statement. It may sound big, said Nielsen of the Trump administration's latest overtures, but it changes nothing for us at home. We decide our future ourselves. Trump has pushed for a takeover of Greenland since the first term in the White House, and he has ramped up his efforts this year since returning to office. In August, Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen summoned Mark Stroh, the U.S. charge d'affaires, in Denmark after the country's public broadcaster reported that the Trump administration had launched a covert influence campaign to sow discord between Denmark and Greenland. See, that's the magic, right? What they don't realize is while Americans are very wedded to social media and the influence on social media is huge, other countries are not, yeah, they're influenced by social media as well. But other countries are not so influenced that they actually go bat, crazy. It's not that way overseas. And how do we know that? Early this year, Poland showed that 85% of Greenlanders oppose joining the US. Hundreds of people protested in Greenland's capital, Nuuk, in March ahead of Vice President J.D. Vance's visit to the country. He had to head it out of Dodge, man. Greenlandic photographer Orla Jolson said Monday that should Landry come to the country, he will be welcomed by a massive demonstration, larger than the one held back in March this year. And inside of the article there are the two tweets that the tweet that not a tweet, but the social media thing on Truth Social that he sent out. Anyway, continuing, the White House has said that the U.S. should take control of the mineral-rich island for national security and even international security, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The Arctic holds 13% of undiscovered oil resources and 30% of undiscovered gas. The climate emergency and the melting ice has also expanded the use of Northern Ocean for trade shipping routes, and controlling Greenland would give the U.S. a greater claim to the region. Do you don't how I am listening to this, right? And I am saying the pelotas of these guys to just think they can go over to another established land and say, okay, I'm taking that because of our security. Wow. No wonder Israel believes it can do as it does without us doing anything, because Israel is not doing anything to Gaza that we haven't done over and over and over again. Panama. I've spoken to you guys about the uninhibited killing of Panamanians, just bombing them to smithereens, bombing them into body parts. My compatriots. Bombing into, so why should Israel think there's anything wrong with what they do with people they consider subhuman? Panamanians, subhumans. We can blow them out, which is what they did. And they even blew up some they didn't have to blow up. I wonder why. Colón, Chorrillo, Again, we have to really, folks, understand what's going on here. Look, let me just say this. I am positive. Let me just say this. I'm positive because there are more of us than them. And you'll hear me say this all the time, and I'll continue to repeat it for all the new people that are coming. Okay? But I think Trump gave us a chance to take a scab off and not see an infection, just an infection, but see an infection with nasty, cruddy, dirty worms doing the best they can to increase that infection, to keep it going. I look at Miller, his assistant or his deputy chief of staff. Miller and those guys represent those worms that are eating around that cancer, infecting it even further. That infection. The whole administration is an infection. The billionaires that are part of that administration are that coalescing with that administration, that is rubbing shoulders with that administration, are the infected remnants of that administration. And that is how we must see it. We must see that it is all an infection. As Margaret Ryan would say, they call it sepsis. I agree. Sepsis is when the infection has actually gotten into the bloodstream, and as such, it carries the infection throughout the entire body. Very, very good point, Margaret Ryan. You nailed it. You nailed it. Okay. Michael says actually that might not be the best source. They are considered mixed despite no failed fact check. Who are we talking about? That must have been some other issue there. But anyway, I have one. Do I have time for that video? I don't have time for the Arne Arneson video. You can listen to the Arne Arneson video another time. But I also did an interview with, or I was on a panel with Arne Arneson, and we had a good interaction. Let's see what else have we got here that's worth mentioning. Oh, you were talking to Lee. No problem, my brother. All right, let me play another one of Radnin's videos because I don't have enough time to play the last video. Hi, Angie Decadence. I love that name, man. Angie Decadence. Bobby K says politics in today's age make you want to puke. It's not just the politicians; it's the fact Americans ever voted for them. Um, Bobby, let me say this, right? There are a lot of times I want to call people dirty names. They're so stupid. How could they do that? How that and I have to watch myself, right? Because at one time in my life, I also had stupid beliefs, evil beliefs. I did wrong. And why did I do that? Was that my fault that I did wrong? It is ultimately my fault, but it's because of how I was reared. It's because of my environment. It's because of my inputs. It's because of the inputs that I received. And that made a material change to one's psyche, one's mind. As I grew older, one of the things that I'm very proud of is that I, in my maturity, I've developed the skill of listening and also changing. Uh, but you got to make your point for me to change, right? And I was able to change, I would say, most of my bad habits. And for the ones that I still have, for those who teach me that I need to work on them, I will. So while there are times that I want to come out and call MAGA stupid, I want to call them by all the names, lack of intelligence, I want to call them out for all those things. Realizing that it's not lack of intelligence, it's not lack of anything, it's a magical word: indoctrination and Stockholm syndrome. indoctrination and Stockholm syndrome. If we can realize that that is what MAGA is comprised of, well, actually, it's not those two only. It's indoctrination, right? It's how you were reared. It's Stockholm syndrome, and it's a selfishness of the ones who actually know that it is crap, but that they will profit from it. And that's how we have to look at it. And that gives us the opportunity to have grace for those who continue that belief that hurts most. It gives us a chance to have that necessary grace. And that is where I intend to keep myself, in that realm where I can speak to anyone, I can forgive anyone, and I don't know that I have the power to really forgive, but forgive in my mind at least the others that are doing these things. And I think that is where we have to go. I think until we get there, right? Until we get there, no change is going to make, but we have to do something to get there. And I hope for those of you who listen to my show, both live and on podcast and elsewhere, that you see that is where I think we have to go, because we need everybody. Lynette says it is definitely a different worldview. I love when they wear t-shirts and hats. I love to ask them about their support. You know, it's amazing because I went out to lunch with two of us with a MAGA guy that was happy to wear his hat. And you know what was so funny? We are here in Houston, and just watching the scorn with which the people looked at that guy, it was like, huh. And I was right here in Houston, and not to overly. I was here in Houston, not in an overly, what is the word that I want to use? Not in an overly liberal part of Houston, but my God, that guy got some looks. I actually felt for him. I actually think he left the meeting after a couple hours, not because of us, but I think he started to see the disdain with which the people around were looking at him. But who knows? Anyway, folks, we are at 55. I'll take calls. Anybody wants to call, 281-823-7747. Repeating again, 281-823-7747. Let's see if Danuva is going to put that in the chat. Anyway, una vez más voy a repetir. 281-823-7747. Paul Fleming says, Washington Post, over a dozen Heritage Foundation employees recently walked away from their jobs. Heritage has been wrapped in controversy after its president defended Tucker Carlson's interview of Nick Fuentes, a white supremacist who routinely espouses anti-Semitic views. If no calls, my shorts, I'll do another short, but let me see if I can get some calls first. We only have a couple of minutes. While I wait for some calls, I'll probably just go ahead and do your short. Let me get back to that top part where your short is. I played the first two, right? I think it was only the first two that I played, and I played one from let's see, Paul Fleming. But let's see if I can find your short, because you had some good ones. Let's go ahead and put that other one on. I think this is one. Yeah, okay. The deadliest. All right, let's do that. I'll play it for you, brother. I'll play it for you. Let's go for that and play your short.
With the year coming to an end, I want to talk about the amount of people that have died inside of ICE custody this year. It's about 25 people on record, and that number is very concerning. It is the highest number of deaths that we have seen inside of ICE custody since the agency began. But what is also very concerning is how they got this number. So ICE stopped publicly tracking, or the last number or death that they publicly tracked was September 22nd. US News won't. If you count from September 22nd to January, there are 15 recorded deaths on this public tracker on ICE's website. Now, on November 21st, Congress sent a congressional oversight letter, and in this letter, they stated that there were 25 deaths, or around 25 deaths inside of ICE custody, and they got this number from ICE itself. That is obviously a 10-person gap between what the government knows about and what has been released to the public. Now, this is not just a numbers problem. Obviously, the inconsistencies in the numbers and the amount of people is very concerning on its own. But this is also ICE deciding what they want to disclose to the public and getting to decide how accountable that they are going to be. It's also very important to note that this is only deaths inside of ICE custody. So if there is a death during an arrest or during transit, they do not count that. If there is a death immediately after release, they do not count that. The only deaths that do count are the ones that happen inside of ICE custody, and they are not even disclosing those to us. I do feel, just my opinion, that the number is higher than 25. That is not a fact. What we do know is that there are an alarming amount of people that are dying at the hands of our government, and that the public isn't getting the entire picture. We are only getting a small portion of the picture. And if we allow an agency to control its own death count, we are also allowing them to control how accountable that they have to be. The year
Gen Z. I mean, I have checked so many stuff on this on TikTok, and let me tell you, I am so very proud of our Gen Z folks and their reporting. It's not coming from the mainstream. It's not coming from the mainstream. Let me play this last one before we go. This one is from Rudden as well. Let's go.
Show you this, but I will. This is the cover of a major Australian newspaper after the Bondi attack. Bondi 15, we did not protect you. Not senseless violence, not tragic but unavoidable, not thoughts and prayers, but an actual admission of failure. And that's not all. Because at the same time, Australia's largest media organizations came together to run this united ad across all newspapers and television. And I'll just quickly summarize it, but this is something that you would just not see in US media right now. It says, "This is Australia." But what does it mean to be Australian? Is it a passport, a birth certificate, citizenship? Something you feel deeply, whether your family has been here for generations, you made the move years ago, or sought refuge in search of a better life. And then it explicitly called out the attack for what it was, a deliberate act of hate. It shook us to our core because it goes against every
Mayday.
US
Sorry.
News won't show you this, but
Sorry
I
about
will.
that.
This is the cover of a major Australian newspaper after the Bondi attack. Bondi 15, we did not protect you. Not senseless violence, not tragic but unavoidable, not thoughts and prayers, but an actual admission of failure. And that's not all. Because at the same time, Australia's largest media organizations came together to run this united ad across all newspapers and television. And I'll just quickly summarize it, but this is something that you would just not see in US media right now. It says, "This is Australia." But what does it mean to be Australian? Is it a passport, a birth certificate, citizenship? Something you feel deeply, whether your family has been here for generations, you made the move years ago, or sought refuge in search of a better life. And then it explicitly called out the attack for what it was, a deliberate act of hate. It shook us to our core because it goes against everything we stand for, targeting people because of their religion, not Australian, living in fear in your own community, not Australian, turning a blind eye when hate spreads, not Australian. When our neighbors, friends, and families are threatened, we don't look away, we speak up. Meanwhile, in the United States, mass shootings happen so frequently that we don't even hear about them in the news anymore. We've been told that it's normal, that it's unavoidable, and that it's the acceptable price of freedom. But freedom for whom? But Australia is showing us that other democracies don't just accept mass shootings as an acceptable price of freedom and democracy. And Americans deserve to know that another response is possible. US
That is so true. It has become it has become so normalized now that we do so little about it. Very good. Hey, those were four solid videos, Mr. Rudnan. Thank you for that, and also, of course, to who else gave me videos? Paul Fleming. Good find as well from you. Thank you for that. For the great conversations in both chats. Thank you for that. We got to get out of here. Please remember, support the program however you can. Please go to politicsandright.com/newsletter, politicsandright.com/newsletter. Please consider becoming a paid subscriber of our newsletter. That subsidizes everything that we do. And if you want to know about everything that we do, you can actually, maybe I should sometime I'll give you the about section. But if you want to know a whole lot about the different areas that we're in, please visit. I think it's like Berto. Well, let me just go there. I have several different references to it, so let me just do it here real quick. Just visit our links page, and that'll take you to all the different platforms that we are on. Anyway, folks, I got to get out of here. Angie Decadent says, thanks, Egberto, and happy holidays. We are going to be on live tomorrow morning as well, and tomorrow afternoon as well. And for the days that we do record, we'll have a lot of new material on KPFT that from interviews. Some of them would be interviews that many of you have seen here on the live off and on. But for the people that are listening on KPFT, it will be a first time for most of them. But we'll have new stuff for you as well. Anyhow, folks, please become paid subscribers. That's how we get supported here. We cannot do this without you. I want to thank you all for your eyeballs. Want to thank you all for your ears. My name is Egberto Willies. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies of Politics and Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.